Dear learners, greetings. Today I'm going to discuss a very important topic, and this topic is related to the curriculum of ancient India, yeah, or ancient education system, particularly curriculum of mathematics, science and vocational education. Dear learners, as has been discussed that Indian education system is one of the oldest education system of the world. So how they framed the curriculum of mathematics, science and vocational education. Today's my talk will be based on these topics. So first, let me discuss the curriculum of mathematics, and before I start and talking about curriculum of mathematics, let me tell it to you that mathematics is such an area in which our Indian mathematicians, our Indian philosophers, our Indian scholars have contributed a lot. So at this juncture of time, I don't say that in the other civilization of the world, knowledge of mathematics was not there. Definitely, if you talk about Iranian civilization or Greek civilization or Roman civilization, or you talk about Mesopotamian civilization or Chinese civilization, Egyptian civilization, definitely certain kind of knowledge of mathematics was there. But Indian mathematicians contributed a lot, and I have identified 7 to 8 points. So first I would like to tell the contribution of Indian mathematicians, and then I will be talking about how the curriculum of mathematics was framed in ancient education system. So if you see, one of the most important contribution of Indian mathematicians was number system. So as just I have mentioned that knowledge of mathematics was there everywhere around every corner of the world, but what's the uniqueness of the Indian education system was that our scholars, they discovered zero. So earlier civilizations, I mean other civilizations, they have the knowledge of mathematics, but they were not aware of zero as well as decimal system. So it is one of the most important contribution of Indian knowledge system, or you can say Indian mathematicians. Then you see another contribution that was very important, that was of geometry. And you know, there were so many mathematicians who devoted their whole life in studying particularly the properties of right angle triangle, concept of circle and pi, and you know, pi basically is a constant. It is a ratio, its value is 22 upon 7 or 3.1414, and how it comes, definitely if you are going to divide the circumference of any circle by its diameter, you will find that it gets a fixed ratio, and that fixed ratio is 3.1414 or 22 upon 7. So our Indian mathematicians, they not only studied property of right angle triangle, they studied the concept of circle, tangent, you know, chord, and so many theorems related to circle they gave, so many theorems related to right angle triangle and formulas they invented, and they discovered pi as well. Then arithmetics is such an area where you will find immense contribution of Indian knowledge system. So our mathematicians, they discovered square root, they discovered series, they discovered progressions. So similarly, you know, in the field of measurement, immense contribution of Indian mathematicians was there, and particularly we have the units for measuring time. So either time was long or time was short, we have different units for that. Similarly, to measure distance, we have different units. I mean, for larger distance, longer distance, we have different units. For smaller distance, we have different units. Similarly, for bulky weight, heavier weight, we have other units, and for smaller weights, we have other units. So if you see, particularly when you know, they were required to weigh gold or something like that, or such type of precious things, so definitely, I mean, some other unit was used because the weight was smaller. But you know, so far as goods are concerned, so far as wheat are concerned, so far as you know, other food grains or something like these are concerned, so its weight would have been larger, and accordingly they have different units. So what I want to say that these are the four areas where you will find the immense contribution of Indian knowledge system. I repeat, that is number system, geometry, arithmetic and measurement. And if you see the ancient education system, you will find that in the curriculum as all these things were included. So they taught about number system, they taught about geometry, they taught about arithmetic, and they taught about measurement. Continuing my discussion, let me tell you one thing more that's very important, that our Indian, in fact, mathematicians, our Indian scholars, they contributed a lot in the field of astronomy. And astronomy is such a subject. In order to know astronomy, in order to have the knowledge of astronomy, somehow you have to have the knowledge of trigonometry as well. So these both areas of mathematics were in fact much developed by Indian mathematicians. So particularly if you talk about what was included in the curriculum of astronomy, so it included concept of stars, planets, celestial bodies, solar and lunar eclipse, tithi, nakshatra, and panchanga. And what is panchanga? You all know that it is a Indian calendar system. So if you compare panchanga with the traditional calendar, the calendar that you have in your house, or you can say English calendar, so it includes just dates, days, and sometimes even holidays or something like that, or some important events. But Panchanga is more comprehensive. It talks about Tithi, it talks about Nakshatra, it talks about Shubh Ghadi, it talks about when solar and lunar eclipse are about to happen. Something like that, because older people, in fact, they wanted the knowledge of all these systems. So in the curriculum of astronomy, all these concepts were included. So you can say that the curriculum of mathematics was very comprehensive. Then trigonometry nowadays, all the formulas, all the identities that you know, that you use, mostly it is sine, cos, tan, cot, cosec, and sec, something like that. So in Sanskrit, sine was known as ja, and cosec was and cos was known as koja. So all the formulas, older formulas or older literature, if you go through, you will find that all these identities, all those have been mentioned in ja and koja. So many trigonometric formulas, so many trigonometric ratios, so many trigonometric identities was discovered by Indian mathematician. So in the curriculum of mathematics, besides other things, astronomy and trigonometry was also there. Then comes another area which is very important, particularly in mathematics, that is algebra. Now, let me clarify it, that if you see the name algebra, so it shows that it has the origin in Arabia. The word al shows its origin from Arabia. So Arabian people definitely invented algebra, and from Arabia, knowledge of algebra came to India. But what I want to say, that so many Indian mathematicians were there who contributed a lot for the development of this field, that is algebra. And particularly a great scientist, Aryabhatta, he wrote a very famous book, Ganit Pada, and in this Ganit Pada, in fact, one section is devoted to algebra, and so many formulas, so many identities, and so many expressions, algebraic expressions, indices, and number systems, all those things. So it has been discussed in that particular book by Aryabhatta. So algebra was a field which was much developed in India, though it came to India from Arabia. And then comes binary system. So nowadays, if you talk about binary system, you have two numbers, 1 and 0, and whole of computer system works on these two, that is 1 and 0. So similarly, certain kind of binary system prevailed in Indian mathematics also. So as you know, that 1 is greater unit, 0 is smaller unit. In the same way, we have certain kind of two numbers, Laghu and Guru. So Laghu was the smaller number and Guru was the bigger number. So in a nutshell, if you see that the curriculum of mathematics of ancient education system included the knowledge of geometry, the knowledge of number system, the knowledge of astronomy, the knowledge of trigonometry, the knowledge of algebra, and definitely binary system. All these things were included in the curriculum. And one thing that I would like to emphasize here, that the moment you talk about curriculum, don't limit yourself just to the syllabus, because curriculum is much comprehensive term in comparison to the syllabus. So curriculum includes not only those things which are about to be taught to the students, rather it includes everything. So how any particular topic will be taught, and how students will be assessed, what they are required to know in written system, what they are required to know through hidden system. Curriculum is very comprehensive. So don't think that only one method, particular method was used by the teachers to teach all these concepts that just I have discussed. So many strategies were there to teach these concepts. So definitely, some of the concepts were taught by delivering the lectures by the teacher. Some of the concepts were taught by certain kind of excursions. Some of the topics were taught by some shastrartha or something like that. Some topics were taught through other methods like vada, vivada, like nidhi dhyasana, like kanthastha. I mean, variety of strategies of teaching were used in order to teach this particular curriculum of mathematics that I have just discussed before you people. So let's move forward and let's see another important area, and that was science. And the moment the word science comes, what we feel that science was invented in Europe. It's a totally wrong concept. I mean, science is very old. Science is as old as the human existence. So, being a very old civilization, India has the knowledge of science. Our scientists were there, our scholars were there, who devoted their whole life in the development of science. So, through 7 to 8 points, just first I would like to emphasize how Indian scholars and how Indian scientists have contributed particularly in this field, and then I'll be talking about the curriculum and and the teaching method of these you know topics. So first important contribution of Indian scientists was in the field of metals and metalworking. Particularly they have mastery over iron, steel, zinc, copper and their alloys. So what are alloys? As a active member of the society and as a active visitor of social media sites, you people will be knowing that now it is car making people, they advertise, and besides telling so many characteristics of their car, they say that this particular car has alloy wheel as well. So what is alloy wheel, or what is alloy? Alloy basically is the mixture of more than two or more than two metals. So for example, you are mixing iron with zinc in some ratio, you are mixing iron with nickel in some ratio, you are mixing iron with copper in some ratio, so that becomes alloy. And what's the beauty of alloy? Alloy is lighter in weight. This is one beauty. And another beauty of alloy is that it becomes very strong. That's why nowadays many car companies are using alloy wheels, so that it may be lighter in the weight but simultaneously it may be stronger as well. So our people, particularly our scientists, they have the mastery how to make iron, how to make steel, how to make zinc, how to make copper, and how to make their alloys. Then one thing that is very important that particularly I want to mention to you people, that is the production of zinc. So now it is just what I am saying, you open the Google and definitely you type in the Google downward drift reduction distillation process. So the moment you will type it on the Google, you will know that this is a technique which is used in fact to produce the zinc. So this technique, in fact, why I am mentioning is that this technique was known to our people. So definitely machines would have been different, technology would have been different that of today, but the process was same, and that was the downward drift reduction distillation process. So zinc, what is zinc and how to produce zinc? Indian scientists definitely contributed a lot in this particular area. And mining and ore extraction. So how to identify the ore, which ore belong to which metal? This is one thing that's very cumbersome, because the moment you people have seen in various films and on in various videos that when people do mining, so many metals are combined or mixed with each other, so it's very difficult to identify which ore belongs to which metal. And after identifying, the second thing is how to process that ore so that we may have some metal. For example, how to process the aluminum ore to get aluminum, how to process iron ores to get iron, how to process silver ores to get silver, or how to process gold ores to get gold. So certain kind of technology existed in ancient time, and definitely our people were aware how to identify the ore and how to extract the ore. and particular importance was of gold extraction. Why? Because gold was very important in our society. And the moment I am saying that gold was very important in our society, don't be confused that it was important only for the women, rather it was important for the men as well. So all the noble people, all the court members of the king and their family members, whether they are male or female, all used to wear gold. And even the crown of the king also constituted a lot of gold. So gold was very important in our culture, and our people were aware how to extract the gold ores and how to process the gold, how to melt it, how to give it the shape. I mean, what should be the temperature, how to cut it. I mean, everything they were aware about it. And then smelting of iron is such a phenomena which you may know. Even if today if you visit the Qutub Minar campus of Delhi, you will find that there is an iron pillar and it is very old, and it is free from rusting. So it shows that our people have certain kind of mastery to uh, make the iron free from rusting and all those things. So all these were included in the curriculum. Metals and metal working was included in the curriculum of science. How to produce the zinc, I mean techniques and everything, and downward drift reduction distillation process, it was included in the curriculum of science. And how to do mining and how to do ore extractions and how to process the ores into metals, it was also included in the curriculum. And then smelting of iron. Continuing my discussion, one thing more that I want to mention, that our people were aware about mercury. And there is a great scientist Charaka, and Charaka has written a book, Charaka Samhita. And in Charaka Samhita, he has mentioned about mercury. Mercury is known as para, and he has described so many characteristics of para, that is mercury. And why, and even today, if you see, mercury is a very peculiar very peculiar, you can say. Mercury has two peculiarities. So one peculiarity is that it is the only metal which is found in liquid state. All the other metals, they are found in solid state, but only mercury is found in the liquid state. This is one peculiarity. Another peculiarity is that mercury is very heavy. So if you see the density of mercury, it is 13.6, and if you compare it with the water, you will find that the density of the water is 1. So mercury is 13.6 times heavier than the water. That is, if you have 1 liter of water and 1 liter of mercury, you will find that 1 liter of mercury is almost 13.6 times heavier than 1 liter of water. So somehow, why mercury was important? Because mercury was used in the amalgamation process for the extraction of silver and gold. That's why Charka devoted his whole life in studying. I mean, he studied so many things, but he significantly devoted much time to study various properties of mercury. So our people, they knew about mercury. Then lead and silver, there is no need to say, they were aware about it. They were they were aware about its characteristics. And particularly if you go through the books of Kautilya's Arthashastra, so you will find that he has mentioned silver coins of definite weight, which were framed or which were made by certain kind of combination of lead and silver. Then lost wax casting of idols and artifacts, and manufacturing of steel. And another point that I would like to mention here, that steel has so many peculiarities, and steels has so many top types. But one most important type of steel is woods steel. And what is woods steel? You will find that woods steel, carbon component is more. So in every steel, certain kind of carbon component is there. But if you'll compare various types of steel, you will find that woods steel has more carbon compound in comparison to other steel, and that's why it becomes very hard. And it's particularly it is used in weapon making. And particularly in the medieval period, there was one blade which was very famous, and that was Damascus blade. So that Damascus blade, in fact, was based on the technology of wood steel. So what the historians have written, they have written that so many, in fact, traders, they visited from India to Damascus, and they knew in India, they knew about wood steel, and that knowledge was propagated to Damascus. And they developed in Damascus, people developed certain kind of blade, and later on it became famous as the Damascus blade, which was particularly used to make the weapons. So These all these were included in the science curriculum. I mean, about mercury, about the characteristics of mercury, about the uses of mercury, about various characteristics of lead and silver, what are its uses, and definitely how to manufacture woods steel. In this continuation, let me discuss another thing that's very important: vocational education. So it's a wrong concept that vocational education is a new idea, or vocational education was invented by British people, or vocational education was coined by Europeans. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, certain kind of vocational education existed in ancient education system also. So at this juncture of time, I'm interested in telling you people what vocation particularly were prevalent in the society, and how vocational education was provided to the people, about which vocation. So just I'm mentioning through these points. So you see, architecture, I mean, it was very important. Architecture even today is very important, because if you want to build bridge, if you want to build railway bridges, or if you want to build, airports, I mean all those things. So architecture is important, or architecture has always been important. But important thing was that our system was based on Vastu Shastra. And what is Vastu? I mean, certain kind of knowledge of directions. I mean, if you want to construct a home, so where should be your drawing room? I mean, in which direction its door should be there? I mean, how it should be. It might be cooler in the summers. How it might be warmer in the winters. I mean, how it might be having the cross ventilation. I mean, all those things. So this is one thing that was rigorously taught to the students. I mean, they were aware about Vastu Shastra, so that whenever they are entering in their real life, and whenever they are serving the society, they may know how to construct the building. And particularly the knowledge of town planning was there. I mean, certain kind of buildings were there. So mainly three buildings were there: unitary buildings, residential buildings, and royal palaces. So how to construct them, particularly based on Vastu. So all these things were there, and all these came under the category of vocational education. Irrigation and water management, I mean, it was very important. Water has always been important. It is very important today also. It was very important at that time also. But it was particularly important at that time, because at that time people didn't have the submersible pumps to extract out water. So whatever the rainwater they were getting, they effectively managed it so that it might be utilized for them. So certain kind of this rainwater harvesting system was there. How to store the water, how to make the dams, so that that stored water might be later on utilized for the irrigation purpose. I mean, all these knowledge was there, and it was taught, and it came under the category of vocational education. Then comes dyes and painting technology. I mean, it was very important technology, and so many people were there who made this their profession. I mean, their livelihood was based on these professions, or vocations, whatever you say. So it was also an important part of vocational education. Then comes the art of making perfumes. Even today, you young people definitely like perfume. I know. I mean, I have seen so many of my male students that they particularly like some different perfume, and particularly the female students, they use different perfume. But perfume is such a thing that is liked by young people, and I mean older people also. So at that time also, I mean, perfume was such a thing that was liked by the people. So certain people in the society were required to be there, who can make this perfume. I mean, who had the knowledge of perfume, and who can make the perfume, so that people might purchase and people might use whenever they are required. So this is an area which was a very important component of vocational education. Then surgical techniques, I mean, that is very important. So again, this is the point on which I would like to emphasize, that surgery, I mean, knowledge of surgery was there in ancient India. So if you see a great surgeon, Sushruta, I mean, he has written a book, Sushruto Sanghita, and so many things have been mentioned about surgery in that book, I mean, Sushruto Sanghita. So What Sushruta did basically, he was a great surgeon. So first he observed the various birds. And if you see the birds, you will find that falcon's beak is different from sparrow's beak. Sparrow's beak is different from crow's beak. A crow's beak is different from kingfisher's beak. I mean, all the beaks are different. So Sushruta first, in fact, observed minutely the beaks of the bird, and accordingly he designed some surgical instruments. So Sushruta's contribution is of two. One contribution that is very important that I have just discussed, that he designed so many surgical instruments. And another thing, I mean, he invented certain kind of anesthesia, because surgery is such a painful process that without anesthesia it will be very difficult for any doctor to do the surgery. Even today, if you go to the operation theater or if you go to any hospital, you will find that before performing the surgery, these surgeons, they invite some anesthesiologist, and that anesthesiologist in fact comes and gives the anesthesia. Then surgery is performed, and when surgery is over, then finally the patient becomes conscious. So today's anesthesia, definitely it is based on different techniques, or different technology, or it is chemical based. But earlier anesthesia, I mean, that was invented by Sushruta, was not chemical based. Rather, some medicinal herbs were there, some plants were there. I mean, certain kind of leaves, certain kind of grass. I mean, something like that. It was used by Sushruta before the surgery, and then after giving the anesthesia, Sushruta performed the surgery. So, at some institution, you will find that it was also included in the vocational education curriculum. And then definitely shipbuilding, because ship was very important. Ship even today is very important, but at that time, since we didn't have the railroad, a rail track, or we didn't have the roads, so the only way of transport was ships. And particularly trading and all these purpose, ships were used. So how to make the ships, how to build the ships, in fact, this was also included in the curriculum of vocational education. Then there was a great scholar, Van Bhatta. Van Bhatta has mentioned about 64 kalas, 64 art forms. If you'll go through the document of National Education Policy 2020, you will find that it is mentioned in National Education Policy. And National Education Policy basically wants to amalgamate or to utilize the all these kalas in education system. So I think so far as vocational education is concerned, its curriculum was very comprehensive, it was very vast, and it included architecture, irrigation and water management, dyes and painting technology, the art of making perfume, surgical techniques, shipbuilding, and 64 art forms or kalas. Another thing that's very important, Ayurveda, it was invented in India, and Ayurveda is a way of complete health. So how much you eat, when you eat, how you eat, when you sleep, how you sleep, how much do you sleep, somehow all these affect your health. And Ayurveda does not talk only about ailments or diseases. Rather, it talks about preventoriums as well, how to prevent the diseases. So Ayurveda was such an important contribution. I think even today, it is one of the most important contribution of Indian knowledge system. And yoga, of course, I mean, for holistic health and wellness. Then Panchakosha, I mean, a five-layered existence, Annamaya Kosha, Pranmaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandmaya Kosha. Certain kind of disease management, that is diagnostic techniques and surgery was there. Drugs and physical therapy, in fact, was there. So all these were included in the vocational education curriculum. So in a nutshell, you can say that the curriculum of vocational education was very comprehensive. So for today, it's enough. I will be there before you people with some other topic. Thank you very much for listening to me. Have a great day.